Delta Force exists for situations that fall outside normal military frameworks. It is not a conventional combat unit, and it is not designed for prolonged conflict. Its purpose is limited intervention, used when political, diplomatic, or time-sensitive constraints make traditional options ineffective. The following operations are publicly known or widely reported missions involving Delta Force. Each section explains the context, the objective, the outcome, and the broader impact, not tactical execution. Operation Eagle Claw 1980, Iran. Operation Eagle Claw was the first major mission involving Delta Force and remains one of the most consequential failures in U.S. military history. In 1979, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized, and 52 Americans were taken hostage during the Iranian Revolution. Diplomatic negotiations stalled, and public confidence in the U.S. government eroded rapidly. Leadership felt pressure to demonstrate that the United States could still act decisively. Delta Force had only recently been formed and lacked real-world operational experience. The mission required unprecedented coordination between multiple military branches, aviation assets, and intelligence agencies, systems that were not yet designed to work together efficiently. The operation was aborted due to mechanical and environmental complications, and during withdrawal, a fatal accident killed 8 U.S. service members. Although the hostages were not rescued, the long-term impact was transformative. Eagle Claw exposed deep structural weaknesses in U.S. military coordination. It directly led to the creation of unified Special Operations Command structures, improved interbranch communication, and dedicated support units. The mission failed operationally, but succeeded in forcing systemic reform. Operation Acid Gambit 1989, Panama. Operation Acid Gambit took place during a period of escalating tension between the United States and Panama under the leadership of Manuel Noriega. A U.S. civilian operative was being held inside Panama City, while broader military intervention was imminent. The situation demanded a response that minimized visibility and avoided accelerating the conflict prematurely. The objective was straightforward: recover one individual safely without turning the situation into a public military confrontation. Delta Force was selected because the mission required speed, discretion, and precision. The operation was conducted shortly before the wider invasion of Panama began. The extraction was successful, and the individual was recovered without expanding hostilities. Acid Gambit demonstrated how special operations could be used as a targeted solution within a much larger political and military framework, resolving isolated crises without triggering immediate escalation. Operation Nifty Package 1989, Panama. Following the U.S. invasion of Panama, the primary unresolved issue was the status of Manuel Noriega. Removing a head of state presents unique challenges. It is not just a military decision, but a legal and diplomatic one, with implications for international law and precedent. Delta Force's role was not centered on combat, but on containment and pressure. The objective was to prevent escape, limit movement, and maintain control over the situation until surrender became the only viable outcome. Eventually, Noriega surrendered and was transferred to U.S. custody to face trial. Nifty Package reinforced a shift in U.S. policy, favoring detention and prosecution over assassination. It showed how special operations could be used to enforce accountability rather than eliminate targets outright. Operation Gothic Serpent 1993, Somalia. Operation Gothic Serpent occurred during a humanitarian mission that devolved into instability. Somalia was not an officially declared war zone. The U.S. presence aimed to support food distribution and reduce violence from armed factions interfering with humanitarian aid. Delta Force was tasked with detaining individuals associated with the local warlord network. The mission was intended to be limited in scope and duration. Unexpected resistance escalated the situation into extended urban combat following the loss of aircraft. The operation resulted in 18 U.S. fatalities and widespread international attention. 2 Delta Force operators were posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for protecting fellow service members. The aftermath reshaped U.S. foreign policy. It reinforced caution toward interventions lacking clear political objectives and exit strategies. Somalia became a case study in the risks of mission expansion under unstable conditions. Tora Bora Operations 2001, Afghanistan. After the September 11th attacks, the U.S. entered Afghanistan with the goal of disrupting al-Qaeda leadership. Delta Force operated in coordination with intelligence agencies and local allied forces in remote mountainous terrain. The approach prioritized intelligence sharing and strategic pressure rather than large-scale troop deployments. The operation succeeded in disrupting leadership structures but failed to capture key figures who escaped across borders. Tora Bora highlighted both the effectiveness and limitations of special operations. Delta Force could shape outcomes tactically, but strategic results depended on broader political and regional factors beyond military control. Operation Red Dawn 2003, Iraq. After the fall of Saddam Hussein's government, his continued absence from custody remained a destabilizing factor. His symbolic presence fueled uncertainty and resistance narratives. The objective was psychological closure rather than battlefield dominance. Delta Force participated in intelligence-driven efforts to locate and detain Saddam Hussein discreetly. The operation succeeded without major fighting. Hussein was captured alive and later tried through legal processes. Red Dawn demonstrated how the removal of a single figure can significantly alter the psychological landscape of a conflict without prolonged military engagement. Operation Kayla Mueller, 2019, Syria. By 2019, ISIS had lost territorial control but maintained ideological influence through leadership symbolism. A targeted operation was conducted against its remaining leadership in a region far from friendly infrastructure. Delta Force was reportedly involved due to the mission's complexity, distance, and political sensitivity. The operation resulted in the collapse of ISIS's centralized leadership structure, accelerating its fragmentation. This mission reflected how modern conflicts increasingly end, not with formal treaties, but through the erosion of legitimacy and organizational cohesion. Operation Absolute Resolve, 2026, Venezuela. On January 3, 2026, the United States executed what the New York Times described as the most assertive American action in Latin America since the 1989 invasion of Panama. Operation Absolute Resolve wasn't a conventional invasion, it was a surgical snatch-and-grab mission. According to BBC News and official reports, elite units, specifically Delta Force, entered Caracas under the cover of a massive aerial interdiction. Within 30 minutes, they extracted Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, from their fortified compound. What makes this operation unique is the legal framework. As reported by the New York Times, the White House justified the mission, not through a declaration of war, but through a 2020 narco-terrorism indictment. By January 5th, Maduro was already being arraigned in a Manhattan federal court. This mission represents the ultimate evolution of Delta Force. Speed. The entire ground raid lasted less than 30 minutes. Precision. There were 0 U.S. casualties. Legal over military. It was framed as a personal, massive joint military and law enforcement raid, essentially treating a head of state as a high-value criminal target rather than a battlefield enemy. As the BBC noted, this has set a stunning global precedent. It signals that in the modern era, national sovereignty may no longer be a shield if the U.S. decides the cost of doing nothing is higher than the risk of acting. As of today, the legal proceedings in New York are just beginning. This operation will likely be analyzed for years as a landmark case in international law and special operations doctrine. What these operations explain: Delta Force is not used to win wars. It is used when diplomacy fails, time constraints override process, political consequences demand precision. These operations reveal how the United States defines its thresholds for intervention, choosing limited, controlled action over prolonged uncertainty. Understanding Delta Force is ultimately about understanding decision-making under pressure, not combat itself.